What is up, math superstars? In this edition of Mr. Peterson Presents, I'm bringing to you how to convert fractions, decimals, and percents, and this is just part one with a little smiley face. So here we go. The first one we're going to take a look at is how to convert a decimal to a fraction. So to change a decimal into a fraction or mixed number, we have step number one for your notes. Is you're going to identify any digits. The fill in the blank is to the left of the decimal. These will be your whole number. And in step number two, we're going to identify the place value of the last decimal place. And we're going to write that as our denominator. And in step number three, we're going to identify the digits to the right of the decimal, and we're going to use those as our numerator. And in step number four, last but not least, we always simplify our fractions. So now that you got all the steps, here's what we're going to do. We're going to go ahead now and write 9/10 as a fraction. So with our steps here, we're going to identify the numbers to the left of our decimal. So let's go ahead and take a look at to the left of our decimal is just 0. So we don't have a mixed number here. We just have a fraction. And our second step is we're going to identify the last place value of our decimal, which is in the tenths place. So our denominator for our decimal, 0.9, we put an equal sign. Our denominator is 10, since we're talking about the tenths place. And we're going to identify the digits to the right of our decimal. So the digits to the right, we just have 9. And so 9 will be our numerator. 10 will be our denominator. And we're going to simplify. We already know that this is simplified, and that makes us happy. Let's go ahead and try our second example here. So we have our decimal. I'm going to rewrite it nice and big so you can see it on the screen. So 0.444. That is going to be equal to, let's go ahead and work through our steps. So step one, we're going to identify the digits to the left. That's our whole number. And so right now we have 0. So we're just dealing with just a regular fraction. Step number two is we're going to identify the last place value of our decimal. Our last place value here is our thousandths place. And so with that, our denominator is going to be out of 1,000. And then our numerator, we're going to look at all the digits. So all the digits to the right of the decimal is going to be our numerator. So our numerator is 444 out of 1,000. And then we need to simplify. So once we go ahead and simplify, we're going to divide the top and the bottom by 4. And so when we simplify that, 444 divided by 4 is 111. And 1,000 divided by 4 gives us 250. So we could say, after we simplify, that the decimal 444 thousandths as a fraction simplified gives us 111 out of 250. Let's go ahead and try another one here. So our third example, our decimal is 1 and 48 hundredths. So our very first step here, we're going to identify the digits to the left of our decimal. And so to the left of our decimal is 1. So we're going to write that. We have 1 whole. Our second step is we're going to identify the place value of our last digit. And so we have tenths, we have hundredths, so the 8 is in the hundredths place, so our denominator is going to be out of 100. And then our numerator here, we're going to look at all of the digits. So all of the digits to the right of our decimal is 48. So we write that as our numerator. And now we have to simplify. So in order to simplify our fraction, we can divide the top and the bottom by 4. Should do the trick. So 48 divided by 4 is equal to 12. 100 divided by 4 is 25. And we have to make sure that we bring over our whole number of 1. And so we can say that our decimal, 1 and 48 hundredths, written out as a fraction, is 1 and 12/25. So now let's talk about how we can convert a percent to a fraction. So in our previous video, we learned that the word percent means out of 100. So here are our simple steps here. So we're going to write the percent as a fraction or a mixed number with a denominator of 100 is our fill-in. And our second step here, we're going to write the percent is going to be our numerator. That's where you're going to write that in your notes for number 2. Because our third step, as always, anytime we have a fraction, we're going to simplify. Wish I had a cool sound effect for that, but I don't. So here we go. We're going to practice. We're going to write 5% as a fraction. So our very first step here is our fraction for percent is going to be out of 100. So our denominator is going to be 100. And we're going to take our percent, here's 5, is going to be our numerator. And you guessed it, now we have to simplify. So what we're going to do is we're going to divide the top and bottom by 5. And when we do that in our simplification, 5 divided by 5 is 1. And 100 divided by 5 is 20. So we know that our percent, 5%, when we write that as a fraction, it's going to give us 1/20. So here's another example. Here we're going to write 77% as a fraction. So in order to do this, our denominator is 100. And our numerator is our percent. So we're going to write 77 over 100. And we're going to simplify. And the good news about this one is it is already simplified. Yay! Let's try one more. So we're going to take a look at 112%. So when we do this, our percent is out of 100, so our denominator is 100. We take our percent, 112 is our numerator. And now we have to simplify. So when we go ahead and simplify this, we know that there is 1 whole and 12 over 100. And we still have to simplify one more time. We changed our improper fraction to a mixed number. And when we simplify our fraction, we just divide the numerator and the denominator by 4. So that gives us, our fraction is 1 whole and 3/25. So when we go from our percent here, 112%, as a fraction, gives us 1 and 3/25. So now let's talk about how to convert a decimal into a percent. So there's a few ways we can do this. You can either choose to multiply the decimal by 100, which is actually the same as the decimal moving 2 places to the right is our fill in the blank. And then after you do that, we're going to use our percent sign. So here's our example. We need to write 2/10 as a percent. So to go back to step number 1, we can either multiply by 100, or we can just move our decimal point 2 spaces to the right. So here's the way this works. We're going to start at our decimal, and we're going to go ahead and move the decimal 2 places to the right. And we're going to write our new decimal where we moved it. And you notice there is a blank spot. What we do for our blank spot is we're going to write in our place value holder is 0. So now we have 20, and then we just add our percent. So we can say 2/10 written as a percent is 20%. So let's try another one. So let's go ahead and write out our decimal. So we have 2/100ths. So in order to do this, we're going to start at our decimal. We're going to move that 2 spaces to the right. So we have 1, 2. We write our new decimal. And we notice that all of our place values are filled in. So we just know we have 2, and we can write our percent. Let's try this one. Here we go. So we have 2000s, sorry. When we write that as a percent, we start at our decimal point. Our directions say we're going to move this decimal 2 spaces to the right. So we go 1, 2, and we stop and write our new decimal. And so our number, so 2000ths, is equal to 0, our decimal point, 2%. So it's not even 1% yet. So we're at 0.2%. So now you're doing such a great job, math superstars. This is the last part, converting a percent to a decimal. So in order to do this, we can either divide the percent by 100, which is the same as moving the decimal 2 spaces to the left. So there's only one step in this, so let's go ahead and give this a try. So we have 89%. So what we do here is, since there's no decimal listed, we're going to put our decimal to the right of the 9. And it said in our directions, we're going to move the decimal 2 spaces to the left. So let's go ahead, So let's go ahead, our decimal point, let's go ahead and give that a try. So we're going to move it 1, 2. We're going to write in our decimal. So our decimal for 89% is 0. Our decimal point, 89. So let's go ahead and try 13%. So we have 13%. 13, the decimal is not written down, but we can go ahead and fill it in. And with 13%, what we do is we move our decimal 2 spaces to the left. 1, 2. We go ahead and fill it in. And so our decimal is 0 and 1300ths. And last but certainly not least for our video, here we're going to write out 100% as a decimal. So to do this, we're going to write 100%. Our decimal, since it's not there, is after the 100. And we're going to go ahead and move our decimal point 2 spaces to the left. So let's go ahead and do that. 1, 2, and we stop. And that gives us our decimal is 1, decimal point 0. Let's try 2%. I thought the last one was it, but once again, I got one more for you. This counts as our super bonus for today at the end of our video. We have 2%, like our 2% milk that we talked about in class. So we're going to write 2% as a decimal. Our decimal will go at the end. And we're going to go ahead and move our decimal point 2 spaces to the left. 1, 2. We wrote our decimal, but we notice that we have a space missing, so we're going to add 0 as our place value holder. So 2% as a decimal is 0 decimal points 0.02.